Joining me on the phone today here on Indiana in the Morning on WCCS is Broadway producer and, of course, a native of Indiana, Carolyn Violi. Carolyn, it is so good to talk to you once again, especially here on Indiana in the Morning.
Oh, Josh, I'm so excited to be talking with you as well. It's been a long time since we spoke.
It has been a long time. I should explain to our listeners that I was a big participant in a lot of the programs put together by the Indiana Players in the 1990s, and I got the chance to work with you on a production of Shenandoah, starting out as a member of the tech crew and then being a kind of a walk-on role, if you will, doing as a Confederate soldier.
Mm-hmm. That was such a wonderful production, and I've always enjoyed working with so many people here in Indiana, and you were just a delight, really a delight, Josh. Your voice has gotten much deeper, however, I must say.
Yes, definitely. I had a higher pitch back then. Okay, but Carolyn, let's talk about your current role now. The last time that we had talked, you were getting ready to go to Broadway to be part of pit orchestras for Beauty and the Beast and other productions. Mm-hmm. And now you are a big-time, well, I can say big-time producer now on Broadway. Well, we can say a producer at least.
Yeah, okay.
So explain to our audience, who may not be as familiar with theater as you and I are, explain what a producer actually does for a Broadway show.
Well, there are various levels of producers. You have large names, big names up there like James Niederlander, who is a producer of many Broadway shows, and he has quite a few theaters in New York. That would be a big-time producer, I would say. And then you have producers that are in the creative team. They will be producing, what's happening on stage. And then, of course, there are co-producers, which are responsible for some financial things, getting people invested in shows. And then, of course, you have investors then who put money into these shows. And sometimes, as an investor, there may be an opportunity to be a co-producer, and then that makes you eligible to receive a Tony. As investors, for some of the shows I did, I'm not eligible to actually receive a Tony, mm-hmm. but as a co-producer, I would be.
And one of the shows that you got to co-produce was a show that was up for a Tony. You were very proud of it. You were talking when we were talking about it during the scheduling process, called Fat Ham. I think this is a very neat concept and a very different way to introduce people to Shakespeare.
Mm-hmm. It certainly is. And I'm excited because I feel that this show, like other shows as well, I think it will introduce the young people to Shakespeare and make them really appreciate and then want to read the actual play Hamlet. Mm-hmm. The show itself is loosely based on Hamlet. The setting is a backyard barbecue in the South, complete with real barbecue food supplied by Virgil's restaurant in New York City.
Wow.
So the actors not only have to say their lines, but they have to look real while they're eating on stage, which is not as easy as it sounds. It really is a difficult task to do that. And, of course, what's a barbecue without karaoke?
Oh, true, yeah.
So they pop out in song every now and then. So it's a funny play. It really is funny.
Mm-hmm. Unlike the source material, which we know is this great drama that has been done many, many, many times. So
exactly.
So what you mentioned though that you were co-producer on a second production that was up for an award.
Well, actually, that I'm only an investor in.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That was an investor. That's when I said, people have misconstrued. I said I have two shows nominated for Tony Awards. They said, "Oh, you have two Tony Award nominations." No. One, I'm an investor, and the second one, I'm co-producer in Fat Ham.
All right. So
it's a little bit different.
What was the show that you did invest in, though? Just wondering.
New York.
Okay.
It was a big musical. It had 9 Tony nominations. And it was, I actually got up to see this show opening night, and it's really a thrill to be in New York opening night for a big major production like this. It's brilliant creative team. John Kander, who Kander and Ebb wrote Chicago, the musical, Cabaret. They used his music and some new music, and then of course Lin-Manuel Miranda got involved with this, and that's a big name that everyone knows from Hamilton.
Yep.
And then choreographing the show is Susan Stroman, who is one of the most brilliant choreographers we have in New York. So I thought win-win-win. I wanted to be involved because, Broadway was dark a long time, and it affected so many people there and across the country, really. The art form was shut down, and it was really difficult for some people to keep on going. But this show, I think, talks about New Yorkers and their dreams of music and the love of the town of New York and the city itself. The tagline is, if they can make it there, they'll make it anywhere.
And from what I saw in the sample that was done on the Tony Awards, this show actually not only was a love letter to New York, but kind of a love letter to the classic musicals like Anything Goes, Guys and Dolls, and musicals of that ilk.
Absolutely. You learned well here in Indiana Players. You learned well, Josh. Yes, absolutely. The stories, there were compelling stories about an immigrant from Puerto Rico who comes to New York. The actor himself came to New York from Puerto Rico to do this show.
Wow.
Talk about an incredible experience from someone to experience New York for the first time in their lives.
Wow.
That story to me is so wonderful. And he was brilliant in this. It's a story of, all it takes place in the 40s around World War II. So you have a mother whose son is in the war. I'm not going to do any spoilers, but she's also a music teacher for a violinist who's from an immigrant family. And so many things. And, of course, the two leads, one is the jazz musician, and the female lead is a singer. And so everybody has a story to tell. I think that's the message of the show. Everybody, all of us have a story to tell in our lives, and I think they capture it beautifully.
Now, people can still get to see both Fat Ham and New York, New York. They're still running, right?
Yes, they are. Fat Ham closes July 2nd because they're going on tour right away, and they're going to hit a lot of the regional theaters across the country.
All right.
And New York is scheduled to go on tour not until 2025, I believe.
Okay.
So there's a lot of time to catch that.
On top of all of this work on Broadway as a producer and as an investor, you're still teaching as well. That's another big thing.
I am. It's hard to believe, but when you do your hobby as your job and you're involved in that, I just love it. I'm working at the University of Alabama in Birmingham, Alabama, and I love my job. I get to work with young college students who plan to do what these actors on stage Sunday night get to do. And I'm trying to help them fulfill their dreams.
All right. So what's in the future for you? Are there any other shows coming up on the pipeline that you have invested in that are getting ready to come to the stage?
Actually, I have.
Oh, boy.
I know. I told myself this might be it, but there's another one way down the pike, which I can't talk about right now. But this last one, I just got a call a few weeks ago from a friend of mine who actually conceived the musical Chasing Rainbows, The Road to Oz, of which I'm one of the higher co-producers. And we're very excited about that show. It's about Judy Garland when she was a young girl. And she was in vaudeville with her two older sisters. A lot of people don't know that story of how she eventually got to MGM, met Leo B. Mayer, and originally was not cast as Dorothy. That was going to Shirley Temple. But in all of this, she finally got the role, and that's where the show ends, because everybody knows Judy at the end of her life.
Yeah.
We wanted to really see the joy and the talent that she had as a young girl. So my friend who conceived that called me and said she had a show that she was co-producing, and it's called Once Upon a One More Time.
Okay, yes, I have heard about this show. This is kind of fairy tale set to some of the pop music like Britney Spears, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Britney Spears went to Jim Niederlander with this idea quite a few years ago, and it's not about her at all. Like MJ the musical is about Michael Jackson. This is not about Britney, but uses her music. It's the story of 9 princesses that we all know: Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White, Rapunzel, etc., who decide after reading a book by Betty Friedan that they were going to change their story. They were going to change the outcome of their story. And one of the interesting things, spoiler alert, that they find out that they're all dating the same prince, played by Justin Guarini from American Idol, and he turns to the audience when they find out and sings, "Oops, I did it again."
Oops, I did it again.
So
yeah.
it's great, and it's all about women empowerment and how you can take your story and really change it to do what you want. And I think it's a great message for everyone, young and old. And the audience, it's in previews now, and they just they're on their feet at the end of the show. Everybody gets a wristband that lights up at the end of the show, and it's like a remix, and they're singing all Britney songs, and everybody's dancing in the aisle. So I'm very excited about this one because of its message as well.
This seems to be a very fertile time for Broadway stories. I mean, we're getting stories, we're getting the classics coming back, like Sweeney Todd coming back to Broadway. But we're getting these modern classics as well, like Hamilton. And we're seeing the new stuff coming through, like the stuff that you just mentioned with Once Upon a One More Time, and of course New York, getting honored, Fat Ham. So the theater scene, I think, is really resurging even after what happened in the pandemic. I think it has resurged stronger than ever.
Absolutely, and there's such an infectious joy when you walk in New York. People are there. People are just living their lives again. I mean, it's going to take people are still a little wary, and but I think there is still, we're breathing a little more now. We're breathing. We can breathe a little more. And the stories are original, which I love. And I think it just can go nowhere but up and up and up.
We could talk for hours and hours, but we're just about out of time, Carolyn. But if there was something that you wanted to say to the people in Indiana, maybe if there's another person who are theater people, and are seeing the big dreams and are hearing this story today, what would be the one thing that you would say to them?
If you love it, just continue doing it. I've learned so much from our community theater, the Indiana Players, and for them to still be around and doing theater, that's where I grew up. I grew up in high school, Indiana High School. I worked with Dwight Pacini and, Mr. Pollack, doing all the musicals. And my training here is in Indiana, and then I took that and I was able to, when I started working at Homer Center, I would direct the musicals there. And then I had an opportunity when I was at Marion Center to do some national tours. And finally, Beauty and the Beast came up, and I had to make a decision, and I did. I went for it. I could still be here teaching, which I would have loved, but I made a decision. I showed my students, when you have an opportunity, you need to go out and grab it. And so you can always go back. You can always go back and do what you love, but take the opportunity and know that you can do it.
Carolyn, thank you very much for joining us on Indiana in the Morning. All the best, much more success to you, and please keep us posted as to how things go down the road.
I will, Josh, and thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Thank you, Indiana.